First, breaking news from the BBC's business editor Robert Peston. The chief executive of the Co-operative group, Euan Sutherland, has written a letter of resignation.
Mr Sutherland, who was appointed in April last year, is understood to have concerns about whether the Co-op's board will accept his reforms to resolve the company's huge financial problems. He's also believed to be frustrated that details of his salary were leaked to the media.
Well, on the line now is Alistair Heath, who's editor of the daily business newspaper City AM. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
It is a letter of resignation, not a resignation per se, so this is a sort of back me or sack me move, is it?
Yes, it's quite extraordinary, really. It's very unusual that you see something like that, at the top of a very large company. In fact, this whole saga has been astonishing. After his pay details were leaked to a Sunday newspaper, he lashed out at his own board and at some of his fellow directors on Facebook, of all places. And he's clearly very concerned that the company has become ungovernable. And I think some of his reforms are absolutely necessary. That whole organisation's been in chaos. Its bank's been in big trouble and has had to be bailed out by its own bondholders. Its retailer is losing market share, and it clearly needs a major shake-up. But what we're seeing here is a culture clash. That on the one hand, there's someone who transformed the organisation like a normal company and who eventually wants to be paid a lot of money. And on the other hand, you've got, a cooperative which links to the Labour movement and the Labour Party, which doesn't really want to change, and of course which is attached to principles that are more egalitarian. And I think, part of the issue is the board structure. They've got a very unwieldy board, and one of the proposals that I think was, discussed last night is reforming the way the Co-op is governed.
A board at war with itself, it would seem, but a board comprising of various people, some of whom are making money, some of whom are losing rather a lot. That's
right, yes. I mean, one of the big problems, or the main drag on the Co-op, has been its bank. It's been astonishingly badly managed over the last couple of years. It's put the lie to the myth that if you're mutual or, a mutual bank, you must be managed better. Well, that's not been the case at all in this case. I think the great challenge is Co-op is a major conglomerate which owns a whole range of different businesses. And, is the corporate structure right? Can you run such a big business and be a mutual and be managed according to these relatively old-fashioned principles, or can't you? Now, there's one big case study of a company that successfully managed to be different, and that's John Lewis. But so far, Co-op has failed to be as good as John Lewis, and has instead lurched from crisis to crisis over the past couple of years. And unless there's really radical reform starting at the top, I fear for the future of the organisation, and I suspect big chunks of it will have to be sold off.
We're just looking at pictures of Reverend Paul Flowers. A huge controversy, obviously, surrounding him. The company's not been out of the spotlight much ever since that row erupted.
No, absolutely right, because at then, amateurs, banking requires professionalism. It requires people who know what they're doing with a lot of experience. It requires a modern board, a modern corporate governance structure. And that was one of the big problems with the Co-op, and that's still one of the big problems with the Co-op at group level. You've got a board with more than 20 people on it. That just doesn't make any sense. Modern companies have got much smaller boards. They can take decisions much more easily. You can't have an organisation of that size where some of the directors are leaking things to the media, left, right and centre. You can't have internal discussions that suddenly turn into highly, media-friendly stubs. All of that clearly is not going to work, and clearly the CEO is very frustrated, and he thinks that unless some major changes, he just doesn't want to be part of this anymore. And that is a big challenge for these big companies. It's not enough just to pay an outsider a lot of money and ask him or her to change things. You actually need to want to change, and if you don't want to change, then I think, trouble lies ahead.
Alistair, good of you to give us your time this morning. Thank you very much. Alistair Heath, editor of the daily business newspaper City AM.